I should probably have chat up in case someone wants to ask questions.
I
All
did
right.
announce it in the GC Discord and my Discord.
Perfect. Well, for those who might tune into the stream, I am here with the varsity Hearthstone captain of GCU Esports. That's Grand Canyon University. Now, the coordinator was one of the first guests I had on the podcast, and now we're kind of diving into the teams and the admin behind Albert. So, this is Cole Rick, and he is the varsity Hearthstone captain, as I said, and admin and streamer, as well as a staff writer for the Collegiate Esports Network, which I am kind of partnered with my podcast. So be sure to head over there, CESNGG, that's on Twitter, or CESN.GG for their website, where they have all their other collegiate information going on. But Cole is also the chief operating officer of Kyoto Esports. So we'll dive into what it means to be his role at GCU as well as his role at Kyoto Esports. So, hi, Cole.
Hey, it's nice to be here.
I see you are set up quite nicely at the GCU arena. Nice little branding spot behind you as well.
Yeah, it's a really nice space that it definitely wasn't always like this. When I joined the club last year, I'm currently a sophomore. Instead, we were in a much smaller space. I'd say not even half of this. We had cubicles with 13, or I want to say 13 computers as opposed to the 36 we have now. And because right now we have individual desks, right? Beforehand, these were connected cubicles. So if a guy 3 cubicles down was raging at, I don't know, if he missed a shot in CS and he bangs his desk, I feel it 3 desks down. So definitely a much nicer upgrade than what we've had.
Yeah, I mean, that sounds like quite the improvement. And the arena is just really new, right? It's like within the last 6 months, or was it, or it helps if I press my button to talk. I keep
I
forgetting
was gonna say, is it mine?
How old is the arena? It's relatively new, isn't it?
Yeah, actually, the arena was introduced at the beginning of the first semester last year. So that would be what we're in spring 2019. So fall 2008 is when this was officially open to all guests.
How's it been serving the club so far?
It's definitely had a monumental effect on not just the competitive side, but the casual side too. A big complaint that we had last year was because the way we operated as a club, you paid an initial club fee and you came in and you could play whenever you want. The problem with that is that a lot of people didn't want to pay, the $350 to be a part of the club for the entire year. Some people were like, oh, I might come in on the weekends, but I can't really justify paying that much if I'm only going to come in, 4, 5, 6 times a semester. So one of the major shakeups that the arena has had is that we've introduced a LAN center type system where you can pay for a number of hours, and those hours you can use up, and then if you don't use them all, they save over, and you can come back whenever and continue to use those hours that you bought. This has opened us up to an entire market of casual people who just want to come in and play games on just higher end PCs than they may have on their own. And not only PCs, we have like consoles, we have Switches that people are literally playing Smash behind me. We have Xboxes, we have PS4s, and the university will buy any of the new games. We recently got Anthem. We had Red Dead 2 when it came out. We had Spider-Man, the last game that came out on the PS4. We got that. The arena itself on the casual side has done well, but it's also done really well for our competitive side. So right now I am on the side with 24 computers, and behind me are 12 computers that are specifically selected used for our competitive teams. They're a bit beefier. They have a bit nicer of a setup than our other ones. And so what that is that those are like when an Overwatch team has a match, or there's a practice, or a CSGO team has a match, literally any team, if they have a match, they prefer to use those computers. And we've already seen results from that. Our Overwatch team placed, I think, top 32, if I am not incorrect, in the varsity season. They're still going through the national, where they can still place pretty relatively high. Our CSGO JV team has been doing absolute work against teams that are relatively higher ranked than they are. Our R6 program started this year, and I'm sure you're very aware of that. And they've been doing pretty well, too, from what I've been told, from things that happened at other universities last year. But yeah, overall, this space has been a blessing, and it's been more than just, oh, you have nicer computers and more space, but it's because we've attracted that casual side. The community that we've had is incredible. I've never thought that I would meet the kind of people that I did, and my friend group has doubled. When I was afraid of not making friends when I came here last year, and I was like, okay, I made one or two friends, and now that we have like this giant facility that people come into all the time, I meet new friends, new faces every day. And as an admin, like I talk to them, I get them interested in the club, and I love seeing the glint in people's eyes when they're like, my goodness, this thing is real, right? Like video games are becoming more accepted, and like this university built this, and I can spend time here and find people with the same interests. And it's all because like it starts with the arena, right? It starts with a physical space, and I think that's awesome.
That's definitely one of my favorite parts of hearing these stories is like every freshman has a fear of not making friends or not getting to know people, and yet video games and these esport clubs are doing so much to bring people together. Like I heard a very similar story from Washington State University, and like they're still getting more and more people out there, and like their video games are just this natural gravitating force that everyone's going to these days. So it's nice to see colleges actually start supporting that and seeing what it does for the communities. Now let's bring it back around to you and your role within GCU. Now, as one of the admin, what's your admin level role with GCU before we go into Hearthstone?
So as I am what's called a game head. So think of it almost like a community leader role with extra responsibilities. Uh, as the game head for Hearthstone, it is my job to make sure that everybody who plays Hearthstone in this club or knows what Hearthstone is either knows that they have opportunities to come together about Hearthstone, and I also provide events and organize events. For instance, we had an initiative that our officers came up with where we wanted to host an event once a month for each of our individual games. And Hearthstone currently has been the only one to keep up to that standard sometimes. Because think about it, it's really hard to have a
Yep.
league event every month or an R6 event every month. But Hearthstone it's pretty easy. You go onto the site, you set up a fireside gathering, and you set it for whenever, and good, and you go. Um, and so what I do is I set up those fireside gatherings. I let my president know when I want to do them, how I want to do them. And the last two times that we've done them, like the university has brought in, hot chocolate and cookies, and it was an actual fireside gathering, right?
That's
We
awesome.
we went we went so far as to like the big TV behind me, right? He's up like a Yule log, and it was an actual fire
That's
heartside gathering.
perfect.
Um, and my favorite thing about being the one to organize is, yeah, maybe I don't get to play all the time, right? A lot of my time is spent troubleshooting problems, interacting with the community, but more so, I enjoy that more than playing the game a lot, right? Because yeah, I can sit down and try hard in a tavern brawl game, or I can walk around and look at the funny moment that my friend just had, or introduce a new member of the community to some of my friends that will eventually then become my friend and become a part of that community.
Hmm.
Um, Hearthstone it's kind of hard, right? A lot of people are either very turned off by card games or they're somewhat interested. You don't really find a lot of like in CS:GO, right? You got people who love CS:GO. They'll yell and they'll like go to every event and they'll bring the hype, but there's not really a lot of hype for Hearthstone.
Yep.
But what it does have is that it has a certain attraction of people that every person I've met that has tried to be a part of our Hearthstone community has been the exact kind of person that I would want in our community, right? They've been friendly, they've been compassionate, caring, just generally good people. And I don't think any other community, at least at my university, can really boast the fact that yes, maybe our community is small, but I can tell you I can tell you first name, last name, and favorite class in Hearthstone of every single person in our community. And I think that's something special that is yet to be reached by other communities.
Yeah, and I mean, when we start talking about forming teams and communities, it's like that level of acknowledgement and understanding of who's in that group and who's on that team that really starts forming that bond. I mean, traditional sports, you got a lot of that when teams would go on away trips and they would be gone for a couple weeks at a time, and but they're bunking with their teammates. They're getting to know them at a longer, more extended period. And I think we're getting that with esport clubs because everyone just wants to be there. If you're not in class, if you're not studying, if you're not getting ready for that next big project or finals or dead week or anything like that. You want to be doing how you want to spend your time. And for a lot of people in gaming, it's being around other gamers. And when you can push yourself about a game that you're passionate about, it's just an easy thing to magnetize to. So I mean, kudos for you for getting that close to everyone in there, but also it speaks to the group that GCU is building.
Yeah, for sure. GCU itself, as the esports community that we have, we've definitely had our rough points, and something that I think every university will start to see is that, and that they should try to stop on, is that communities will start to form within your community, and that's not necessarily the bad part. The bad part is when you start identifying people by the games that they play, right? Mm-hmm. For instance, there is like, oh, all the CS:GO players are super toxic, or oh, the Overwatch players are always really loud, right? I think a trap that we almost fell into was blaming entire community for certain things that happen, right? This is an arena. This is a physical space that we all share, and we have to treat it with respect, right? And sometimes people don't. But what you have to do is you have to address the person and not the community they're part of. And because we started doing that, that was the one trap that like was really the problem for a while. Mm. And once we got this community space, once we started coming together more, we kind of looked at it and we're like, we all want the same thing. We all just want to play games. Let's just come together and be fine. And after that, like it was like that. And everybody was like, yeah, I don't see you as a CS:GO player anymore. I see you as Noah. I don't see you as David. I don't see you as an Overwatch player. I see you as David. And because of that, we've started to know each other on a more personal, intimate level. And I think that's a step that our club has taken that was really, really important, and that a lot of clubs should look to take.
I like that idea. I hadn't heard of really people starting to kind of create those kind of social cliques that end up being a little more toxic than anyone really intended them to be. But it's nice to hear that your team and your squad were so cognizant of that you were able to address it early, and like you addressed the behavior, not everyone at once and kind of scolding everyone at once and kind of bring the whole culture down with a few bad apples kind of thing. And yeah, I mean, that's just a really mature way to take it. I mean, I hope I'm not downplaying or talking down to you, because I think with organizations like the esports clubs, these are a lot of the first times that a lot of people are in management roles or organization roles where they have responsibilities, and everyone else is kind of looking to them to lead by example, unless you're another leader. So, I mean, that's a big deal to handle something like that.
Yeah, this was definitely a bigger step for me, because my first year here was spent just being a member of the Hearthstone squad that didn't exist, by the way. We had found out a week beforehand, because I had no idea what TESFA was. A week before the fall season for TESFA started, I was like, oh my goodness, like this game that I've been playing since 2015, I can actually compete. But then I was like, oh, I need a team of 3. And I was like, does anybody else play Hearthstone? And I found 2 guys I'd never talked to before that were like, we play Hearthstone. And then those 2 people became like my closest friends for like all of fall. We did terrible, by the way. We were absolutely awful because we had no idea what we were doing. We had no idea what the meta was for the competitive scene. But none of that mattered, because after the games, we just went out and got food and hung out. And for me, that's all I wanted out of it to begin with. All I wanted was to be a part of something bigger than myself, and that was enough. But then come this year, I've been told, hey, you've been really active in the community, would you like to lead Hearthstone? And my first response was, I don't know how. And it was like
an honest answer, and it's the right answer to give.
Yeah, and my club president was like, well, okay, here's the game head role, we're going to teach you as you go. And I was like, okay. And to be honest, I think it was a lot easier than I thought it would be, because all I had to do was find people who liked Hearthstone. And when you put out an announcement in Discord of over 600 members, you're gonna find a few people who like Hearthstone. And we had tryouts, and this was the first thing that made it real for me, because we didn't have tryouts last year. I was like, okay, as the admin, I should probably find the best people. And I put tryouts together, and 20 people showed up. 20 for a card game.
And that's a great turnout for any college campus event.
Yeah, because they didn't have to show up. They could be sleeping. They could be eating pizza. We're college kids. But no, they wanted to be a part of this community too. But we put teams together, and my favorite thing, and I say this every time, my favorite thing is that even the people who didn't make a team still show up to community events. They didn't feel like they didn't make something. They didn't feel like, oh, I'm not good enough. They just wanted to be a part of the community, and they still show up, and they still talk to me. There's no toxicity. They're not like, when are you going to put me on a team? They're just like, hey, I'd like to come and play Hearthstone. And that's my favorite part. That's what makes my heart so full for the esports community as a, like in general, is because we're not just people who sit here and play games. We're people who want to just be together, and it's the same thing with soccer. Soccer players aren't always playing soccer. They're hanging out. They're just being friends. And that's what the esports club is too. Like literally not even an hour ago, I was invited by we're going to designate them as their players for now, a CSGO player, a League of Legends player, and an R6 player to go get lunch. And it was awesome. All we did was just chill. We just talked about what we were doing at our respective games. We just talked about college life. I love esports so much. And everything about it is just it's what every club and every organization should look to be like, is something like esports.
Yeah, and I mean, even beyond like crossing game genres, like in your local area, one of the stories that I like the most hearing about how esports, specifically collegiate esports, are really reaching out to other colleges is that with the Collegiate Rainbow Six League, it was their first season this last fall. And so they were figuring everything out. All the teams who wanted to be involved, they were helping each other. They were already like, they were also helping the league. They weren't just like being accommodating when trying to schedule their matches. They were also like informing the league and doing roundtables to figure out how they can best help each other and help build out that league around the care of a game that they were passionate about. Like, that's one game, and if you can get that kind of setup for every game that you support for your college, and then you start feeding that to other colleges, there's no reason why every college and community college shouldn't be able to fund a arena or a club that has like a basic competitive setup. In my mind, it's easy to do that in relative to like a traditional sport cost.
Absolutely. And the thing I love about, you're talking about R6, let me gush about R6 for a second. I had never played the game until Albert 3 weeks ago bought the game for me, right? Because he was so adamant that I become a part of the R6 community. And the only thing holding me back was I'm a poor college student. I couldn't afford, the starter edition with all the characters. So Albert was like, here, watch this. So he buys me the game. He's like, just play with the R6 guys. I'm like, but I'm not good. And he goes, just play. And I was like, oh, okay. Immediately, I had the most fun. I was streaming the game, and we bird boxed an entire round. I had I thought they were going to be mad at me for not tryharding, right? I put a bandana across my eyes, and Chase, the player who like plays at like a high level, Boxy, I think is his name, was guiding me the whole time, and we were cracking up, right?
Oh, that's hilarious.
They treated me, somebody who had never played the game before, with such love and welcome. And on top of that, with Collegiate R6 as the organization, I love them. I personally know a few members who work on Collegiate R6, and they're some of the most passionate people I've ever seen who's wanted, right? Their graphics design was amazing. Their videography was very on point. Just everything they did was for the love of the game. And that's the thing about collegiate esports. In professional sports, it feels like a very, I'll do what I can to succeed, and I'm going to step on anybody I have to, right? And sometimes that's just the kind of environment it breeds. But in collegiate esports, all we want is to succeed and bring as many people with us as we can. A good friend of mine once said that all they want to do is succeed and bring as many people into the same space as they can bring, right? And I think that's something very special that collegiate esports has that literally no organization in the entire world will ever have. Is that kind of love of just wanting, because it's like, yeah, maybe if, let's say GCU, right? Let's for instance say that we had somehow like pro player levels like of players on all of our teams, right? We we could very easily we could very easily be like, yeah, we just want to dominate everybody and we're not going to do, we don't care. We just want to win. But even if we had those like levels of players, because we're collegiate esports, we would do everything we can to help develop the scene, even if it means we would lose games. Because that means we're finding better talent that can also get exposed so that they can find a career in esports. And then they funnel that back when they become pros into collegiate esports by supporting them. And it's an amazing system. I love collegiate esports. It's awesome.
Yeah, and one aspect that I'm really hoping more colleges turn themselves onto is that winning doesn't have to be the only metric for how they're measuring their success of their esports program. Oklahoma University, or University of Oklahoma, they are focused on a lot of community outreach. They're focused on a lot of social work and journalism and practicing like streaming and broadcast rights. And so, I mean, they're focusing on the production side of it and the community side of it. And when I've talked to other clubs, when the club is talking about community or community first or what they're doing with the local community, it always seems so genuine. It's never just like this, oh, we're doing it because everyone else is doing it and this is how you grow it. It's like, this is what's important to them. They're being extremely genuine about their own identity, not only as gamers, but then also as a college. And so this is a great representation for the schools. And community being at the forefront of all of these goals, or for a lot of the clubs at least, where they'll actually call it out, where some clubs don't call it out, but it's still important to them, and you see that in how they're prioritizing things or what they're talking about. They just may not call it out specifically, but community and belonging is some of the most prominent underlying themes that I've gotten out of the 20 some episodes of podcasts I've done for collegiate esports.
Yeah, community is big, and it's big for both a personal reason, and it also makes sense to the university. Just think about it. From a marketing standpoint, the reason that athletic scholarships are given out is because when we watch the Rose Bowl, right, you see two college names, and you're like, oh, I know those colleges now. It's if you have the best players on the forefront, you will get your name out there. But the way esports does it differently is that just by being a part of the community, you're going to say, oh, I'm part of GCU esports, or I'm part of Oklahoma State esports, or I'm part of Oregon State esports. It's just people talking to each other. And the reason that it doesn't have to be top tier play is because of, I feel like, the forefront of streaming. Being a community means that you're going to have more people who want to share their experiences. You'll have maybe more streamers, maybe more games to stream, and it's just getting all that content out there. People are bound to see it. For instance, I think of Albert was talking to me, and he said something along the lines of like, the reason that we are now the number 2 biggest club on campus with over 900 registered members.
Wow.
Nobody knew who we were last year. And the thing is, half of campus doesn't even know that this arena exists yet. Because people are talking about it, but we're like rapidly growing, but we're not there yet, right? Not enough people have spoken about it, but it's getting there because we're gaining, 10, 20 members a day. And it's incredible to think, because according to what I've been told, this space may become even bigger next semester.
Yeah, I mean, legit. I mean, between your school being seeing what you guys can produce in terms of content, in terms of competitive teams, in terms of what goodwill you've done along campus, and what you're doing as part of a recruiting effort to get new students to come out, like, this is all, if this is just year 1 for the arena and kind of year 2 for the club, or like still early years for however long the club has been around, like, and this is the momentum it's already building, they can see 5 years in the future when they're seeing professional esports being a multi-billion-dollar industry, and collegiate esports only being a few years behind that in terms of development, regulation, organization, all that kind of stuff. And if they can see that, they're going to go way hard in investing early on. And even then, Robert Morris, the first college to have scholarships and a varsity team, that was 3 years ago. And
Yeah.
here you guys are right here. You're in like the first dozen, 2 dozen colleges to start also having more of an organized program. Like you are still in that front runners group. You're leading the way. You're paving the way to tell other colleges, this is what we did. This is what we would have done differently. But at these points, this is what we started to make different moves on, choices on. And that's an important role to be in because now you're basically setting up a legacy of collegiate esports at GCU.
Yeah, and the one thing I really want to stress that I haven't quite said yet is that all of this, everything we did to achieve this, we don't try to keep a secret. There is a group that I'm a part of that includes members of the esports communities at Carnegie Mellon University, Rochester Institute of Technology, Duquesne University, and many other universities are included in that. I just can't remember them off the top of my head. But we came together and we've been talking about what we can do to help our programs succeed. And I've met some of my greatest friends there. I still talk to almost all of them to this day. And it's awesome because they brought ideas to me that I have then said to our administration that they thought were good ideas. I've given them ideas about, like, here's what we said to our university to get them to think about giving us an arena, right? I think Rochester Institute of Technology announced recently that they will be having an actual arena or space of some sort. And how I was talking about collegiate esports just wants to help each other succeed. That's not just players. That's not just organizations. I feel like we are willing to do what it takes to help see another university gain what we have.
And I
And
mean,
that's awesome.
yeah, that's awesome. And I mean, that's how you want to build a greater community than just those right around you. If collegiate esports is really going to survive and kind of be a testament to how maybe another path to pro, either through like production or by maybe a challenger league that's set up specifically for collegiate participants, or however that wants to form from game to game, like you have to do that together. And without a organizing group, kind of like the NCAA, forcing everything to be a certain way, and esports having to be addressed and built differently than traditional sports, it's got to come from the people who find it the most important thing to build. And reaching across those lines, not being like, these are club secrets, this is how we have to be the first one to the top, and we have to beat UCI in the next year just to be like, we have a better certification for esports program. Like there's maybe a little bit of that competition to kind of be like keeping up with the times, but there's nothing malicious or like really kind of disdainful between one program and another.
Yeah, the love between programs is really, really great. And I think we can see that between inter-community events. Last year, we had something called the Cactus Combine, where Grand Canyon University and Arizona State University came together, and we held a LAN. And we just played together. We had the GC varsity team play the ASU varsity team. We won that, by the way. Sorry. And we just had teams play together. It was like Rocket League, Overwatch, League of Legends. We came together, and at the end of the day, it wasn't about winning, right? It was just about playing together and realizing that we are in this love together. I think a bunch of colleges in Pittsburgh are doing the same thing too. Colleges in Florida, I know, are holding a LAN together soon with the help of Full Sail.
Yep, the Armada sounds like a crazy
Yeah.
arena. Holy crap.
Yeah, like it's awesome because like this space is amazing, right? And this is just the beginning.
Yep.
Other colleges can look at this and think, how can we improve on this? And then make their own, and it'll be twice as awesome. And then we'll look at it and we'll be like, we should take some notes. And it's just like up-to-date facilities in the next 5 years will look nothing like this, and that's okay. Because this is an awesome start. We could probably use a setup like this in the next 5 years, and it would be considered fine. It would be considered worthy of coming in and paying money to be here. But just imagine what this is going to be, right? I'm so excited for the future, and I'm still in college for the next 2 years, probably 6 for my master's. I'm excited to see where this goes.
Yeah, and I mean that's a great point. I mean, a lot of other colleges, their leadership are in their senior years and they're having to focus on how they're training their predecessor or the person who's going to be taking over and how do they live up to their predecessor. And like I mentioned earlier, most of these people haven't been in manager positions or presidential positions of where they're really organizing an entire group. So that transitioning of the guards basically is a really hard thing to handle. But when you have someone who's going to be established for 6 years, like I have a hard time believing that going from in your sophomore year and being an admin of one game, you wouldn't be an admin of admins in like 2 years, and then maybe like VP or president or treasurer, whatever hierarchy you guys have, being really high up by the time that you're ready to transition off. And maybe by that time, like Albert has like 4 or 5 other people working with him, and then like the growth in that 6 year time period is going to be so cool, and I envy you being able to ride that out.
Yeah, I'm extremely lucky because I won't go into the story too much, but I chose Grand Canyon University on a little bit of a hope and a prayer. Because one of the very cool things about GCU is that when you do the admissions process, how they base scholarships is they base it off of GPA or your test scores, not both,
Hmm.
right? And because of the way that my schooling had worked out, my GPA wasn't very high, but I had an ACT of 36. So um, I was able to come to this college and it affordably, and I was able to kind of experience the college life without having to worry about, financial stress. And I was able to focus on my studies, and I was also able to focus on being a part of the club. And as anybody here will tell you, I don't think there was a day where I wasn't in that space, trying things out. I actually started a podcast, and it was awful. We had webcams on chairs, and we had like a PC on the ground just to make it work. It was called Plat Chat, and I try not to think about it, but it was awesome because as much as awful as it was, right, as scuffed as it was, I was like, wow, being able to do this and have people who want to talk to me about esports, this is incredible, and that my passion is right now, it's quadrupled what it was, and I see no stopping because everything I have done in the last year has been in some shape or form for esports.
I'm right there with you. Like I've been doing the podcast for a little over a year, and for the first 18 or so episodes, I was focused on game developers and hearing their story about how they got into the industry, because that's a common question of like, how do you break in? How do you get in? Like, what do you have to do to, what school do you have to go to, and all that kind of stuff. And so I thought it was an easy question to answer. But when I started interviewing collegiate esports, it was Mississippi State University I interviewed first, and it's like, oh, there's something here. There's a nugget here. There's a passion here. There's something ready to explode, and no one was talking about it on the internet. Like it's just down to those really small form leagues and clubs, and like unless you were already paying attention to it because you were on one of those college campuses or you were already in one of those clubs, it had no exposure. And now that I've done 20 some of these things where it's like it's just these great people with great passions and great dedication to getting this thing built, like it's been infectious for me. I go in each week panicked I'm not going to find a guest or not being able to record, or my production's going to be off, and I have audio blunders all the time. But like it's been so refreshing to get this energy as part of my guests and being able to do this each week that I don't know what my role is going to look like in collegiate esports in a few years, but I hope that there's something carved out because I felt that infectious passion that was brought by the students who are building this thing with boots on the ground.
I think something that and I won't gush too much, but I really appreciate what you do. I won't lie, I've listened to all of them.
Oh, thank you.
Because when you did the interview with Albert, I was like, oh, there's somebody who does this, right? And it wasn't hard to find because I had seen it a few times. I was like, I don't really know what this is. And then then Albert was on. And I was like, oh, okay, I'll give it a shot. I was like, wait, this is incredible
Well, thank
because
you.
it not only like you do a very good job of interviewing, but at the same time, I love to be able to hear the stories, right?
Hmm.
Mississippi State, uh, like everything else that I heard from every club, I was like, oh my goodness, I'm not. And
Can you say that again?
it's
My headphones got unplugged.
no, yeah. Sorry, I didn't know if you wanted me to stop altogether. What I was gonna say is when I heard your show, it made me feel like a little less nerdy about esports because I realized, wow, I'm not the only who like gets super hype and excited just by the fact that this exists,
Right?
right? And
Yeah.
I was like, this is really a community that I'm just like everyone else, and I am so ready to take this to the next step with anybody who wants to help.
That's exactly right. And I mean, you heard the interview with Marco over at RIT and his work with the Call of Duty or Collegiate Call of Duty League. I still can't say that right. But his work on there and his dedication to it is just, it's what everyone is doing. It's just he's up 24 hours a day and he's on social media saying, "Hey, I'm doing this awesome thing now." But like that's a passion that I see time and time again, and like you're starting to get faculty to have that, like Dr. Chris Haskell at Boise State and Moog over at OU. Like those are well-informed faculty who are reaching across lines as well, trying to figure out how can we do this thing. And so that energy is passing from student to faculty to school boards where they're just like, yes, we need to do this. Like you will not find a better club to be a part of on a college campus, and it's very quickly being a community that you can belong to just by putting in a little effort, like I do with this podcast each week.
Yeah, and really quickly, I won't go too much on it. Marco and I are actually pretty good friends. And when over last winter break, when he was staying up really hard to work on the CCL stuff, I was up as well working on journalism stuff for Kyoto because I had gotten the news that, oh my goodness, I'm now head of journalism because the last guy was taking a break, and I was like,
What
oh
am I going
no,
to do? How am I going to
what
do
am I
this?
gonna do? Yeah, I was like, the last guy left no instructions. I had to learn the administration part of the site all by myself because the CEO was always busy, um, and there was no one to talk to. And I literally had to find out everything for the first time, forge my own path. And that's something that I think not only Marco has done extremely well because he has, and like people here at the university talk about Marco. Like our Call of Duty team will come in and just talk about Marco because not only does he work hard, he memes with the community all the time.
Oh yeah.
He's a community like figurehead, and it's awesome to have that kind of recognition throughout university.
Yeah, I mean, and you only get that by being truly authentic and working your ass off.
Absolutely.
So now we've talked a little bit about your Hearthstone experience at GCU. Is how is your squad doing this year? Because I know you mentioned when you first started, you guys just like done. How's
Yeah,
it going now?
So when I ran tryouts, I had to make a decision about whether or not I was going to play on the varsity team, and I decided that if I could find 3 guys who took it above and beyond, that I would, sit out and I would coach. And what I learned is that there were 2 players who stood out the most to me, and I thought I have to get in. I want to be able to play with these people because they were so incredibly talented, and also because there wasn't a third that I could really bring in. But we don't talk about that. Um,
How's your
and
how's your Hearthstone game stepped up since joining them?
okay, so to start off with that, I've been playing Hearthstone 6 months after it came out, and I had my first competitive LAN win at a LAN called ClutchCon 2015, which was a CS:GO LAN that was ran awfully. I had a laptop that overheated, and it overheated in the middle of a game that I had to take an auto loss on, and I still got through that series.
Wow.
And I played in front of an audience of, now hold on, this is going to be a big number, 50 people, right? Like, which I meme, because the CS:GO LAN had like upwards of 2,000, 3,000
Okay,
people watching, and I was like, I was on a side like stage or whatever, but I was like, oh, it's just a card game. Like I was super nervous, my hands were shaking because I had never played in front of an audience before. And my dad was like freaking out because he's been supporting me through esports this entire time. Like, it's a card game, but he was screaming every time I would win a match, and I was like, wow, I really want to try. And then I did come to GCU, and I was like, okay, let's bring that experience, and it didn't work because what I had learned very quickly is that when you have a team for Hearthstone and you're not just playing by yourself, that skill level steps up. You need to be able to think about everything.
Can you explain that a little bit to me? Because
Yeah.
it's interesting to hear that Hearthstone competitively is 3 players.
Yeah, so it's a team sport in the fact that you're not necessarily playing 3 games at once. You're still playing 1v1, but it's sort of like a hive mind. You're all sitting there, and the way that it's usually delegated is that there's a person at the computer who has the mouse who is playing the cards. And what he does is that he has a general game plan. He knows the deck. He knows how it wins, how to guide that deck to victory, right? Known as piloting. And then you have 2 other players who are there, and this is how we run it, is that they're there to help, and I'll be like, okay, Owen, I need you to check. Keep in mind if he plays this card and then where he plays it from his hand. My other teammate's name is Robert. I'll be like, Robert, I need you to talk to me about the potential if we draw this card, this card, or this card, right? And you use it as a hive mind to be able to think of nearly every possibility. And the reason that it's different than regular play is that because there's a turn timer in Hearthstone, you get 1 minute and 45 seconds to think about each turn. And that seems like more than enough time, right? But when you're thinking of endless possibilities of things that could happen, having 3 minds is way better than 1, and you can think of much more.
I mean, if you think about traditional football, they have what, a 30-second play clock. You have the head coach, you have the offensive coordinator, and then you have the defensive coordinator. Usually it's just 1 or 2 talking at the same time because your team's either on defense or on offense. But you might be having a third conversation where it's like planning what you're going to do next. But that could be minutes away. That could be like, oh, we're going to go into halftime and we're going to have more time to really coordinate and think about what that more macro game is going to be. But we're talking about turns that last as long as 1 minute 45 seconds. But if someone makes a snap call, suddenly you're on your back foot and you don't know how to think about it. You have even less time to think about your next step. So yeah, having 3 minds to pick and guide what's going to happen, like that's pretty much, I don't know, it seems like a requirement to run. Like, there's just too many options, too many opportunities to miss something, that unless you have like that knowledge book over your shoulder being able to say, well, what about this card? Like, that could really be detrimental to any sort of game plan that you have.
Yeah, and one of the things that all of our opponents have complained to us so far is that we give them no time. And what that means is that one of my I like to divide them like this. One of my players is very passive, right? He wants to do things that make sure you don't die and that we can continue playing the game and win. My other player just wants to kill the opponent and will do whatever it takes. And I like having them, right? Because I can put them together and they can think about it. But what that means is that there's always 2 game plans going, and that the second a card is played, I'm like, okay, we're playing a your win condition because like they can't do this, this, and this. We play our turns. You get 1 minute 45. We play our turns in less than 20 seconds most of the time. And what that does is that it doesn't give our opponents any time to think.
You're playing no huddle football.
Yeah, it's exactly what we're doing. That's the way our opponent describes it. It's no huddle football. We give you no time to think. We're just, going. Because the thing is we have designated practice times for 2 hours every 2 days. And we scrim, we think of every possibility, and then we meet up an hour before games here, and we have like our stat sheets. We have the cards that we want in each matchup, and then when we get in, we already know what we need to do. It doesn't matter. Like it's kind of like if you know the answer on a test, you can just do it, and if you don't know, you just go to the next one and wait till you come back. You take no time. You figure out what you're doing, when you need to do it, and then you just do it. So we're like, oh, there's no reason to cry that we don't have Tundra Rhino in hand. What's our next game plan? Okay, Dire Maul, Alpha Wolf, and just go. And that's it. And yes, a few times we have made mistakes because of that, but overall, it's a winning game plan when you have the ability to do so.
Has anybody turned that strategy around on you?
Absolutely. So one of the very funny things is that last year, or last semester, sorry. So right now in this semester, currently we're in the varsity season. But last semester, all teams were thrown together in the same kind of bracket, and it was called Open. And what's awesome about that is that you play any and all teams, whatever the skill level. And what you can do is we have streamed all of our maps on either GCU Esports' official Twitch channel or mine. And what's awesome about that, what's bad about that is that people can learn how we play. So what's been done, what one team did, I forget who it was, but we thought it was the biggest meme. There is a card in Hearthstone. It's 9 mana, so you play it way later in the game, right? And its text reads, each player only has 15 seconds to take their turn. So we knew that they had this card in their deck, and we're like, why? And then we realized, oh no, they also know how to play No Huddle Hearthstone. Because they played their card, ended their turn, and we're like, okay, we want to do this. Oh, our turn's over. And they had planned to only have 1 or 2 cards they played per turn. So they had more than enough time to play their cards. Where our game plan, we needed to play like 5 or 6, and we just didn't have the time because of animation. We won this series, but that was probably it was the funniest thing to see on stream the whole time. And it's only in collegiate. It was like a college trick play. You'll only see that in college play.
That's amazing. I mean, I can only imagine that match was just rapid fire and over in no time whatsoever.
Yeah, and you asked, I guess the original question was, how are we doing? Last semester we were in a little bit of a rut. Our first game was against ASU, their varsity team, and in something that our university still talks about to this day, we reverse swept them from an 0-2. We were down 0-2. They were making fun of us. They were BMing us in game, and we brought it back and won 3-2. And our university president knows about this. Our university vice president knows about this, and we meme on them on Twitter about it all the time. And then, so you have to have a 5-2 record to make it into playoffs. And we lost our next 2 games against one of which was going to be the eventual 2nd place finisher in the entire tournament, and one against the 3rd place finisher. So I mean, we don't feel bad about those losses now, but it felt bad. But then the next 4 weeks was probably some of the most serious I've ever seen my teams, and this is why I chose them. They are amazing friends, and they're great people, but they also go hard. I think when I opened up Discord after the night of losing our 2nd game, I saw 7 stat sheets of Excel. Card percentages, win percentages, what our opponents had played. And this wasn't for like the next 5 opponents. This was for 1. 7 stat sheets. And I was blown away. And the first thing I said was, do you have a life? I was just like, I was amazed because I finally found people that wanted to take this as seriously as I did. And we won the next 4 games, and we qualified for playoff. Now, I won't complain about TESPA Compete because we know they make mistakes, but they had actually scheduled the playoff matches to be during the weekend that everybody was going home for Thanksgiving break. So out of our group of like 27, 13 teams had dropped, and like we were trying to play like while we were on an airplane, and it was just not going to work. So we did take some notable wins. We took some wins off of teams like University of Utah. I think we won against University of California, Berkeley as well. But unfortunately, we didn't make it out of playoffs. Right now, we are in the varsity round robin tournament. Last night, actually, or no, today is Thursday. I apologize. Tuesday, we actually, for the first time, not for the first time, we were the first loss that Berkeley has had all season. They were 5-0 coming into this. We were 1-3. We had a bit of a rough start because unfortunately we just had we read our graphs wrong. We just had a lot of poor planning. But we came into this with our heads up and in a very close like 3-2 series, and the last game was a lot of math and it was a lot of thinking. But we took the victory, and I just want to gush about collegiate sports just a little bit one more time. Nobody around us played Hearthstone, but the second we won, everybody was congratulating us. People from R6 were proud of us. People from League of Legends were sending us Discord messages saying congrats. The amount of support that you'll get from your club, even if they don't know what the heck is going on half the time, it's incredible.
Oh yeah.
I'm not good at League of Legends, but anytime our league team plays and it's streamed, I watch. Because yeah, I don't know what's going on, but I'm friends with all of them and I just want to see them succeed. But yes, right now we are 2-3. Our next match tomorrow is against CLA. We still have a chance to make it out of varsity season, and our schedule is looking doable. Some of our opponents are not bad, but they're not the strongest opponents. We just took on number 1. We can take on number 2 and 3. But we definitely think we'll make it out of round robin this year.
Nice. Well, I hope you guys have all the good luck and all the RNGesus behind you with your card draws. Now, we're kind of coming up towards the end of the show, but I want to get into your role with Kyoto Esports. I hadn't heard of them before. I don't know necessarily all the responsibilities you're taking on as COO. So why don't you give us like the high level, who is Kyoto Esports, and then what you're doing for them?
So Kyoto Esports is it's a bit of a younger organization. They've only been around for 2 to 3 years. 3 to 4 years. I always mess that one up because I've been around with Kyoto 2 years. I started off as a journalist. I wrote mostly about Hearthstone because that's what I knew. Kyoto actually at DreamHack Austin last year had their player take first place. His name is Siohun. He now plays for Lazarus Gaming. He took first place, and that got us a lot of exposure. And the thing is, that's really awesome about that is that I had conversations with Siohun way before he won this, right? He was always a high-level player. He was always known, in the professional community, but he had never had a big win like that, right? And so I got to do an interview with him, and it was really cool being able to do that. And then over last break, they were like, "Hey, we need a head. We need you." And I was like, "Okay." And I had done a lot of work, and I had a lot of conversations with our CEO, Konami, just about things that I want to do. And he knew about my collegiate esports experience. He knew how passionate I was about getting this to the level of professional esports. So 3 weeks ago, he calls me on Discord. And the thing about that is that he usually messages me first, but this was a straight call. And I was like, "Hey, how's it going?" And he goes, "What do you?" He asked me what I'm doing right now. I was like, "Can you talk?" And I said, "Yeah." And he goes, I'm getting very busy, and I need someone. I need somebody who I can trust and who can, help this org go where it needs to be. And I think you're that guy. And my first response was, I think I screamed. I muted my mic, but I screamed, right? I was like,
Yeah,
"This is amazing." And then I came back and I was like, "Yeah, I could do that." So my responsibilities are, as the head of journalism, I talk to all the other heads. We have a head of social media. We have a head of streaming department. We are currently getting a head of Apex. And we have heads of all our games. And now my responsibilities with that is that I am in charge of doing what I do here. I'm in charge of getting that community together and helping them talk to each other. And helping them, if the streaming department needs this, they need an announcement, well, let's talk to the head of social media, right? Let's have our Twitter guy on it or our Twitter girl on it, whoever it is, right? And on top of that, one of the biggest responsibilities I think I have, and that I'm still that's still unreal to me, is that I am deciding the direction of where this company goes now. He basically told me, "Listen, if you think auto chess is going to be the next big game, you tell me. We're getting ahead, we're paying players, and we're going." I was like, wow, right? I have a responsibility not only to Konami to do what he needs me to do, but I have a responsibility to this organization to just lead it to where it needs to be and get representation and where it needs to go. But my favorite thing is that I am in charge of hiring graphic design artists, and in charge of hiring people that we need. And I know exactly where I'm going because the collegiate community has a lot of good people. Like we've got Marco, we've got people who work on Collegiate R6, we've got people who work on what is going to be the Apex Championship series, or Apex Collegiate Esports series, I apologize, which is also being run by the people who do Collegiate R6. So shout out to them. But I have this wealth of people I can go to and give opportunities now. And I am echoing like what I've heard every person that I love in this community say, and it's that I want to succeed and bring as many people as I can with me. I am in the position to do that now. And that's all I've ever wanted, is to help people get to where they deserve. Because people like Marco, they're going places. People like the person who works on Collegiate R6, Wong Dodge, right? Where they deserve to be there, right? Because of how much passion and work they put in. And as the COO of Kyoto, I have responsibilities, but I also get, I get to make those decisions, and that's exactly where my decision is going. I am getting collegiate people. I am getting, the people who want this, right? Because those collegiate people are the people who want this more than anything.
Yeah, I mean, I think it was Marco I was talking to about this, where it's like, if I had my way, I would start my group and I would be plucking the people I've interviewed, or like people who are in those groups who are being recommended to me, and I'd be like, okay, we're going to make this organization because you all know what you want, but you're willing to work with other people to mend bridges and build a vision that everyone can believe in. And it's like, I'll take all the college graduates and dropouts, whoever was invested in that community, I'll take them, and we'll build something better than everyone who's just chasing money.
Because that's the thing too. Just really quick, is that like not a lot of people know this, but my first year at Kyoto and the amount of work that I did was completely unpaid. I did it because I wanted to, and they offered to pay me, but I didn't want it to be something that it became a job. I wanted it to be something that I did because I love esports. And that's exactly what I'm doing for GCU now as an admin. None of this is paid for me. I still have responsibilities. I still have, student debt, but I am doing this because I want. And that is the key thing to look for.
Well, certainly don't sell yourself short. I hope you are getting paid or will be shortly.
I will be.
So, I mean, that's impressive. That, I mean, you're taking this on at a club level, and then you're taking on a third role in addition to your GCU and being a student role. How do you avoid burnout for yourself? I mean, Marco is a one-off machine, and like, I don't know how he does it other than I don't even want to guess how he's able to do that. But how are you managing?
I won't lie. It's not always easy, right? Sometimes I do have those moments where I'm like, I should take a break and just maybe, tell the president that I just can't do this right now. But then I get a Discord message from whether it be a friend or from a team member that says, hey, thank you for doing what you do. And then I'm back, right? Like, not everybody says thank you, and you can't expect them to, right? Because at some point, it is what you're supposed to be doing.
Right.
And it's not always a thank you that does it either. It's just like having conversations like this about esports. Not only like I get to tell my story, it reminds myself why I love this so much. Because I've had people like Marco and I were originally part of a group that met over winter break called the Collegiate Scribble Squad, where all we did was we played Scribble.io because that's all we could really play over winter break. Not all of us had computers, and it was during that time where I decided that I was like, yeah, this is exactly what I wanted. Because at first, it was something that I did, and maybe if there was a path in it, then I would pursue it and see where it goes. But now I am dedicated to making that path. I am dedicated to blazing that trail, if you will, so that others can also realize that this is something. And to answer the question just in an actual, like, here's the answer. What I do to avoid burnout, I just talk. I talk to people. I learn why they do it. I learn why I do it. I experience for myself the passion that others have. And that gives me in turn the energy they have. I take on like a Goku spirit bomb and I throw that at my workload and I'm like, this is nothing.
Man, I knew I was in good company, but man, now you're just sounding a little too nerdy for me. Just
uh,
kidding.
I was about to say, I hope not, man.
No, no, like you're saying all of this stuff, and even about the stuff about Hearthstone. I haven't touched Hearthstone in like 3 years. I'm like, oh yeah, yeah. No, that makes sense. I get it. I understand. Boy, boy, am I finding the right people to talk to. So, I mean, we're at that hour mark, and don't want to keep you up too long or keep you too late. Why don't you do any shout outs either for GCU or Kyoto Esports or whoever else in the community that you feel like doing, or shout out your stream? Let us know where people can follow you or get in contact with you.
Yeah. So first off, I'll do my shouts really quick. That way, I just don't forget. My Twitter is at Elusive Hunter. That's ILUSV Hunter. I post a lot about esports in general. I post about what I'm doing, what Kyoto's doing. I have to be a little careful now that I'm COO, but I still meme. I promise. Um, and I want to give a specific shout out to some people in a group that I was a part of that really helped me learn this. The first off is Marco. Marco showed me that hard work can get you anywhere. And I am, I wish I talked to him more, and I think I'm gonna, because just the amount of work that he does. I watch CCL all the time because GCU plays in it, and just like looking at all the graphics and how clean it looks. And then I was like, I actually got confused. I thought I was watching Call of Duty World Series for a second. Then I was like, wait, these should be backwards.
Oh
Because
yeah.
no offense, but Call of Duty World Series, I'll step your game up. But and then the people who Wong, Dodge, and Vixento who work on Collegiate R6, they helped me get through some tough times with that. And then Arcats too. She's an admin at Carnegie Mellon, and just those people in general have made me realize how much I love esports. Grand Canyon University esports is awesome, by the way. If you guys ever want to find a loving community in collegiate esports, you're gonna find it here, whether you're a competitive player or a casual player. And then also my stream, I stream all the stuff that GCU does all the time. I'm always live somehow, despite classes. That is also ILUSV Hunter. You'll see me there. And I want to thank you for letting me be here. This is probably one of the most fun things I get to do, is just gush about esports and gush about what I do. So I appreciate you giving me that outlet.
Yeah, thanks for taking the time to talk with me and just kind of roll through your roles. It's always good to keep in contact with GCU. Albert was one of the first contacts that I had, and it was one of those things that just started me down the road that I'm on right now. So, hey, always happy to pay it back. Let me know how you guys do in Hearthstone. Let me know whatever else is going on. Remind Albert that I'm still here and that he can always reach out to me. And I promise this time we won't have audio problems and we have to re-record the whole episode again. I promise. And RCAT, since you're at Carnegie Mellon, I would love to talk to your esports club as well. So name dropping other clubs, that's great for me. So I don't have to try as hard to find guests all the way up to the last minute of publishing. So yeah, thanks for taking the time to chat with me, and I look forward to hearing more about GCU.
Yeah, anytime.
All right, take it easy, Cole.
Hey, you too. See ya.
See ya. All right, and that's it for my stream. So let's make sure that that doesn't. Oh yeah, that looks like total butt because you can't see me. Okay, let's. No, is that working? Yeah, there we go. We'll just do this. I'm making it work. We're doing it live. I'll make it look good somehow. Let's close it out on a positive note. Something like that. Maybe. Yeah, there we go. That's good enough. All right, that was a great chat with Cole. I love hearing about GCU. I've been following them both in just what Albert's been doing, what their Twitter account has been doing, and through R6. And it's what I've done with a lot of schools that I've interviewed. Is like, oh, I'm following Collegiate R6, so it's like, okay, go down the standings. Oh, they're there. Oh, they're there. Oh, come on. How can you be down there? Like I'm expecting Boise State to step it up. GCU's doing great, so kudos to them. And now I feel like I need to watch some Hearthstone. Like having that three-person brain trust is an interesting take for me. So there's always more to learn about collegiate esports, and I'm looking forward to finding more contacts. But for me, this is the episode. You can find it published on Monday morning, 3 a.m. Pacific Standard Time, 6 a.m. East Coast Time. And it's anchor.fm/the summoning hour. It's on like 10 different platforms, but if you go there, you can find where you want to listen to your podcast from. So thanks for tuning in. Thanks, GCU, for shouting out the stream and getting people in here. I appreciate everyone who dropped into stream just to listen. And I hope you guys follow along with the podcast or any future streams that I do for the Summoning Hour. And that's it for me. Take it easy.